We're moving so that we can all kick back and have a great new life in this beautiful new town.
There is no such a thing as Stepford. Stepford is in the mind.
Welcome to Stepford.
Thanks.
There is no Stepford, Connecticut in real life.
Welcome to Stepford.
We had to recreate the town of Stepford from nothing. There is no town.
Thank you, and action, please!
What we were after was a sense of the modern suburb, of the McMansion suburb, of the tech boom homes that people suddenly could afford.
The look of Stepford is defined by new money. Computer people, electronics people, very new money. There's no real history and texture to this town. It's all spanking new, perfect.
I'm with Stepford Realty. We spoke on the phone. We must be watchful.
You go to Connecticut nowadays and you have 80,000 square foot homes with a mom, a dad, and one child.
I call it cozy.
And there's something both incredibly seductive and obscene about that lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle which makes no apologies for being luxurious. And the metaphor for that world is the houses that people live in, which are much too big for their lives. It's like a library with very few books.
Where would people never notice a town full of robots? Connecticut.
Well, I grew up in this town where we're shooting right now. Greenwich, Connecticut is my hometown. You know, it's kind of surreal for me because Round Hill Road is my childhood road. And to drive down Round Hill Road into this particular world is rather bizarre.
Let's do another one, please. When we have the sun, it's beautiful.
When I was growing up, there were no Stepford wives in Greenwich. No, it was quite different. Not to say that there are now. I mean,
there is no real town there. They are shooting in places like Greenwich and historical old places in Norwalk and New Canaan.
There's no town center. You know, we discussed, should we have a town center when we scouted locations, and we decided, no, let's make it up with them driving through and we could see shots of houses and stuff like that, but they don't ever shop anywhere except this one supermarket.
The houses in this part of the country, the perfect houses are based on classic models, which go back to colonial times and the federal design, which is all about moderation and balance. And the most successful of these places are based on an idea of good taste, which comes down from classical models. And that's what the movie is organized around.
I always knew this movie needed a very distinctive look, a look that could be immediately identified as pure Stepford. This film has such glorious outsized sets from ballrooms and barns and book clubs that it's not something you could do on the cheap or on the quick.
We built more than we thought. In part, it's because of the cast. We have such amazing cast members. What comes along certainly is hairdressers and wardrobe and all that stuff. And so it's usually better to have that all in one place in a studio than to take the whole horse and pony show to the location. So as a result, we built much more. We had the ballroom and the little garden outside. That was in Queens.
That whole thing, the men's association, the garden that Chris and Nicole walk into, and the ballroom are all connected. They were all part of one huge set. And it was great because then you could connect the two. When Nicole and Bet are sneaking to look into the men's association at night, that's really where they were. They were really on the ballroom set, looking across the garden into the men's association.
The Hunt Room is based on an existing room, you know. It is a room in Nesterwood, which is a mid-19th century, basically what we now call a robber baron's house, although I'm sure the gentleman who built it was not particularly a robber. The basic shape of the room is taken from that room. It's an octagon. And these incredible bookcases with the split curved pediments are line for line. You know, we never could have thought of the wonderful design detail.
It's excessive, you know. Everything's grand, you know. I mean, it's a neat room, actually. I wouldn't mind having one in my house. Except I would use different wood and different carpet and drapes, different colors, but I'm not a decorator, but...
Then, because we didn't have enough studio space, in Yonkers, I never lifted a hammer. The crew built the house of Joanna and Walter.
John, just the man of the house. You don't have to be outside for that, but I want to get the energy up between you two and everything.
It was sort of an abandoned building, a huge armory that we converted into a set.
We'll go again.
Going again.
And also the supermarket we built there. We decided to build the supermarket because where are we going to find a place that's that big that we can shoot in? Most of the time with supermarkets you have to shoot at night because they're open during the day and that's the only time you can get in. So we decided to build our own. The set we built wasn't big enough. So there's a green screen work in that too as well. The last shot of the film is the very high angle shot where all the men are shopping. We built, I forgot how many aisles we built. Maybe it was 10 aisles. Something like that. And then after that, the set kind of went off onto the left side.
Keep shopping.
The upper left-hand corner of the screen is not real. It's digital.
Here's what I'm going to do, guys. I have one good print. I'm running very late, but I'm going to give myself 2 more takes, and then it's do or die.
We just have one.
One more take, then. Do or die. That's what I thought. One more take. I meant one more take. Okay?
One of the joys of doing this movie, and actually it was a joy that I found out, it was an opportunity to kind of do a huge old Hollywood film with all the gorgeous costumes.
Basically, we discuss color palettes in advance. I really like to find colors in the collaboration. So with Ann Roth, the wardrobe designer, I kind of tapped into their minds, because the surfaces that I deal with are what these things are seen against.
It's very easy to pay tribute to Ann Roth. Anne is just legendary. Of course, she hates being called that because she's just somebody who all she wants is to get the work right. She showed me all the dresses for the Stepford Wives, and I would say sometimes, I don't know, that doesn't feel right, and she'll fight me on it, or she'll say, okay, fine, and she'll disagree with me, but she'll always give me more choices. She's always looking to make that little special part of the scene stand out,
Ann Roth, who designed our costumes, showed me a photograph from Town and Country magazine. And I have since met the woman because we're filming in her house. Basically kind of the blonde look, kind of the effortless, kind of Deneuve-y American version of Deneuve. She was thrilled. She's a lovely lady. But I said, you better wait to see the characters.
A world of romance and beauty, of tuxedos and chiffon.
We're doing the 4th of July picnic right now. Background. Rob Hahn, DP, is just walking past.
Hi, kids.
I did it all. I did the landscaping. I did the barn. I built the barn. I dressed all the women. No, I didn't do a damn thing. We have wonderful people, Jack, Govia, Anna. Basically, I make the decisions and they do all the work and I get all the credit.
It is so perfect that it's something that if you could take away and literally put in a display in the Smithsonian as being wholesome and American.
This is a perfect 4th of July. This is more than perfect, more than Norman Rockwell. It's Norman Rockwell then 10 times over to perfection, and that's Stepford. So now I gotta go shoot. Great.
The women are in these perfect kind of gingham gowns and all that and look very pretty. And then you see all these men with, lime-colored shorts and plaid shirts, and everybody had a little teeny cell phone attached to their belt. And socks and sandals. They just looked awful. Little men, urchins with their beautiful wives.
It's time for some sizzling Stepford square dancing, so come on in!
The square dance, the square dance was meant to be longer. And I shot it very long, so the actors square danced for hours. I think by the end of that, they didn't want to hear a fiddle and a bass ever again. complicated there because there's a couple things going on. Joanna and then Bobby and her Roger, they just met outside for the first time. So inside, they had to dance in such a way that they start to, almost like a folk dance, where you start to have a relationship in the dance, build a relationship. Because the next time you see them, all of a sudden they're close. So you can't go from meeting each other for the first time and all of a sudden you're close. You had to have something.
That was great.
This is my book club, and there's a book that I think is the most important book that any of us will ever read.
The Heritage Hills Special Edition Golden Deluxe Treasury of Christmas Keepsakes and Collectibles.
It's all very thrilling.
Your pine cone snowman could be Jewish. Just add one of those little beanies.
I do look at those books on occasion, and I do dream about being able to have the time to create a pine cone centerpiece for my Christmas table, but unfortunately I haven't done that yet.
How long would I last in Stepford? Well, I like a life of the mind. I read a lot, and I like ideas, and I love to watch the clash of politics and all that stuff. So when all that is taken away, a lot of life isn't so interesting. You have to have something to talk about besides pine cones at the end of the day.
The idea was that Mike and Claire were the real thing, and that the other houses were fake, their houses. And so it is an authentic architectural monument, late 19th, early 20th century style, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And what we did was to build a pergola off the house, perpendicular to one of the wings of the house.
It's beautiful, yeah. I mean, it looks like it belongs to the house there, the way it sets on the backyard. It's very lovely, so maybe they left it there, I don't know.
After we had built the pergola, we had to abandon the house because there was a pile driver that we couldn't stop working 3 miles away that was pounding out a granite rock for a hospital project. And
you can hear it for miles around, and it's like every 30 seconds this thing pounds. And so we thought, well, this is a nightmare for sound. It's just going to be insane.
We looked around and we didn't find anything that had the freshness and beauty of that place, so we made arrangements, came back very late in the summer and shot it. I'm glad we did. It is the model from which all else flows, because Claire and Mike are those who are aspired to.
That's all marvelous.
You're stronger, you're faster, you're a better dancer, a better driver. You're a better tennis player. You've always learned at least 6 figures.
Lockwood, of course, was the men's association in the original Stepford Wives.
By coincidence, we used the very same interior mansion that Brian Forbes used in the original. So when you see Nick walking into what was called the rotunda, what you realize is that Catherine Ross walked those same steps. That was pretty amazing that we just happened to have that place. It was perfect.
Oh, boys!
It's a wonderful place, and we were able to refurbish it, repaint it, refresh it according to restoration standards. Sadly enough, these houses, part of our heritage, which we want our children to experience, are falling apart because nobody has the money to maintain them. So we were able to maybe preserve a part of it for a little bit longer, bring it back to its former glory.
Where's Walter?
We had to pre-rig the entire location. We built a grid at the very top of the room, of the rotunda, and there was a ceiling above the ceiling, and we were able to get to that. And so we had basically rigged that place. We rigged that place like it was like a studio.
What it was, I've always seen it as a druid ceremony, or one of those ceremonies where you sacrifice a goat or something. The more pompous it becomes, the more self-important the men seem. So the reason it's all like a druid ceremony is because the men need this to feel important. If they just grabbed or made a robot, they wouldn't feel important. So Chris's character created this. When the beer came up, it's all visual effects.
It's called a bier, I don't know, a B-I-E-R. Obviously that floor at Lockwood Matthews Mansion doesn't open up.
We had to then shoot in the studio a floor that had a hole in it and opened it up, and that body that laid on the beer was a mannequin. And then the visual effects people are the ones who actually had the eyes open.
There's a big high shot that ends the sequence, The way we did that is we shot on the real location with nobody in the middle of the room. Then months later, we were on the soundstage in Astoria. We built a platform that could actually descend. And we put Nicole and Matthew in this platform that would descend. We actually lit them so that when they went down, light came up out of the thing and actually hit Matthew and Nicole because they didn't want to do that digitally. And what they did is they mated the two together.
Chris and
This is a happy snap
moment. Could I just see you on the
mark?
Well, I'll tell you, I really love the ballroom scene because the first movie I ever saw when I was a child was The Merry Widow, and Lana Turner was in it, and Fernando Lamas was in it, and I never forgot it because it made such an impression on me. The color and the swirling dresses and the music and the beautiful people and the lighting and the shadows, and it wasn't so far off. I mean, the lighting in that scene is very similar to the lighting in The Merry Widow. I was quite shocked.
The ballroom is the hardest thing I've ever shot. The ballroom is very, very tough. It went way over schedule, and I think it was scheduled not enough time in the first place.
It was scheduled for something like 8 or 10 days, and I think it took us 30. I knew when I saw the schedule, I went, oh, this is going to take a lot longer than that.
We're almost there. We just have to finesse some things here.
There's a lot of character work. It's not just shooting dancing. It's shooting dancing and the characters changing. It was a big deal. In order to make it work, Pat Birch, our choreographer, took the actors aside and taught them.
Let me just see you waltz in place, please. I'll give you 6 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In place. You keep it neat. 3, 4. In place. 6. Some of you are not on the beat.
We had a big crane shot in the ballroom sequence where there's a dress twirling around and then we go straight up and you see everybody in circles. For me, that was like Gone with the Wind. I mean, those kind of shots were so beautiful in that film.
The ballroom was the climax. It was a really big, old Hollywood kind of ending.
Great. Thank you so much. You guys really were great.
What is happening is a Midsummer Night's Party thrown by the Men's Association and decorated by the wives. So it's a combination of the two styles that run through the picture. One is a very heavy, Spartan, almost classic men's style based on what a man is supposed to be if he's really cool like Christopher Walken. And the second style is the style of his wife, played by Glenn Close. It's somewhat traditional. It's a little more rich than Martha Stewart, but it's the same idea.
The ballroom scene it's unbelievable. The flower arrangements and everything is just impeccable.
We found a wonderful floral designer, Chris Bassett, who joined us about halfway through the movie and really added this incredible layer of incredibly tasteful and luxuriant floral design. And it kind of transforms this world into a dreamland.
A world of romance and beauty. A perfect world.
Very good, everybody.
Very nice.
Very nice. Good. Thank you. Excellent.
The hardest part of this movie, I guess, just making everything gel. Making sure that the actors are dramatic at the right time and comedic at other times and spooky at other times and emotional at other times. Just making sure all those things meld into a good story and into good relationships. I just try and bring that material to life every way I can. I just kind of shoot the movie and have a lot of fun doing it.
When I think of the term Stepford wives, kind of like everyone else.
A submissive woman, robot woman.
The Stepford wife is sort of has no personality of her own.
I think Stepford wife means
she exists solely for the man in her life.
The Stepford wife.
She has, no mind of her own.
Kind of Barbie doll dazed quality.
Basically, I think like a trophy wife.
I think it stands in for people who are conformist.
Something that's both admired and sought after and feared. It really has entered the world's vocabulary. What I found is when I ask people the same question, almost no one has seen the film or read the book that the original movie was based on, but they all know the title.
It's these Stepford wives. Can they say, I love you?
Of course. 58 languages. Well, I know that it was a famous book, then it was a movie. In fact, it's very interesting. I just found out that I live in the town that the man, Levin, who wrote the book, he wrote the book in the town where I live. But I never saw the movie. When I was going to make this, somebody gave me a video of it, and I thought, I'll watch it later. I didn't want to get it mixed up with this.
So maybe the Stepford thing ain't so bad.
I knew of Stepford wives in terms of being part of the way in which we describe a particular type of woman or particular way of being. She's a Stepford wife.
And action!
It must be a powerful idea because it became a term that people use. She's very Stepford, you hear, or he's Stepford.
Now I know that being gay doesn't mean a guy has to be effeminate or flamboyant or sensitive. I'm no sissy.
I know!
I think most of us that sort of grew up when I grew up, or it was already sort of part of our, American zeitgeist, this expression, Stepford wife.
It was something to do with women's lib in the 70s and all these frightened men wanting to make women behave like it was still the 50s.
Good job, everybody. Resetting and going again.
The term Stepford wife probably would be the epitome of what some men may think to be the perfect woman. Or even women may think to be the perfect woman.
And all I wanted was to make you, all of you, into perfect women.
A woman who is non-confrontational, is there to cater to her husband in every way and never make any waves.
Her hair is perfectly done, her dress, everything's perfect. I think it's to an extreme. On the other hand, I don't know any guy that wouldn't mind having a woman who adores him and would love to have a mute button. That's not the reality.
Stepford is a village full of robots and people who don't want to rebel in any way and people who want to all sort of look alike and play the game of life in the same way.
It's probably the most important book any of us will ever read.
It's too much, it's not real. It's a very superficial person.
At this point, let's just rehearse it. To me, it's always meant husbands who had to keep their wives down in order for them to survive. Because the truth is, the men are desperately insecure. The men there have to change powerful women to be submissive, or else the men won't feel strong.
Walter, I think Joanna's right. I think Stepford is the answer.
She's a great gal.
Or she will be.
It was Scott Rudin's idea, I believe, and Scott asked Paul to write it.
I got a call one day from the producer, Scott Rudin, who said that the rights to the original material, to the Stepford Wives, had become available.
After about an hour of hearing the story, I knew what this movie was about. Here we go! And so I was excited about it.
And he basically just said, what do you think of doing the Stepford Wives? And I had this automatic, passionate response, and I said, absolutely. Went back, I read the book by Ira Levin, which is a wonderful novel. I watched the original Stepford Wives, and my main concern was to do something different. I thought, no, since the original movie is quite fine, there's no point in merely duplicating it. Both the novel and the film were a response to kind of a first wave of feminism in America in the 70s. What one of the wives in the original film does that her husband finds terribly threatening is that she practices photography as a hobby. And the husband really found this quite an assault on his manhood. And I thought, well, we've come a certain way since then. So I was fascinated by the updating that we've been able to do.
When I saw the original Stepford Wives in context with what I'm doing, it's very interesting because it's very much on the cusp of the women's lib movement.
And now this is 30 years later, and so it's almost an interesting historical piece.
Frank Oz had such a strong, he was not saying, this is the director, you should go and see it, you should go and see this. He was saying, look, I'm going to make a completely different sort of take on this. But I was very aware of the word Stepford wife. I knew what that meant, strangely enough. And I suppose that's where you go, gosh, it's weird how this film really penetrated the culture. And people know what a Stepford wife is.
These women are like deranged flight attendant friendly. They're going to be all over me.
Joanna! I think a lot of the changes have been in terms of a basic tone.
Action!
Joanna!
Because we've got this sensational director, Frank Oz, who Scott and I both worked with on In and Out. We're definitely of a comic frame of mind.
Good, let's do it again. Ready? Louder for Joanna.
And the material seemed irresistibly funny. When you've got a perfect small town in Connecticut where most of the wives happen to be robots, that strikes me as inherently or hopefully hilarious.
It's time for some sizzling Stepford square dances, so come on in!
It's kind of a dangerous thing to do, this tone, because you're dealing with comedy, you're dealing with social commentary, you're dealing with characters' feelings.
Here we go. Final touches, please.
And so Paul's so smart in the writing that he knows if you're going to have social commentary, you should have it with laughter, because otherwise it'll be just didactic in a sermon.
Frank!
There's a lot of emotions you can have in real comedy. So that's what I liked about this, is a lot going on, a lot of stuff underneath.
What drew me to the Stepford Wives and to the challenge of updating the material was that sense that it combines satire and a thriller and the battle of the sexes.
Well, the missus.
The missus?
And beyond all that, it's a comic take on the American dream, on the American suburbs. I grew up in New Jersey in a suburb, in a tract home, and I know what it means to go to the mall, to look at catalogs, to look at the newest car, the newest house, the newest kitchen appliance, the newest computer game, and say, give me more of that, and what else you got?
Get Sarah right into my Hummer.
Your Hummer?
It's a sweet ride. It's roomy.
And that's what Stepford represents, I think, for the entire world. There's, like it or not, I think part of what makes the planet so mesmerized by America and often very contemptuous of America is Stepford, is that perfect community, that sense of having it all and yet wanting more.
Stepford is Connecticut's family paradise. It has no crime, no poverty, and no pushing.
When I heard that Paul Rudnick was writing it, I took a breath of, relief, because that's the only way to do this. To do a remake of The Stepford Wives, you really need to make it into a comedy. You have to reinvent it.
I have read it cover to cover at least 6 times, and all I can say is, wow, wow, wow. Sorry. It's real social satire. I think this movie is as kind of potent as a social satire as something like Vanity Fair was by Thacker, years ago. I think it's the same. We'll have the same make people laugh, but also kind of poke them in sensitive places as well.
Or halfway through.
That's what I was going to say.
What's his name? Nicole's.
Hopefully this will be as much of a cult film as the original.
That's a wonderful idea.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Frank Oz.
I don't think of my career when I do things. I just think about what excites me. I mean, if you're going to work for a year on something, it just has to keep you going and excite you. What kept me excited were the ideas underneath it, Paul's ideas, and so that kept me excited.
Okay, here we go.
And all of your wives. Oh my God.
In order to create a Stepford wife, you have to have fear.
First, we take a gloomy, dissatisfied woman.
You have to be fearful of women. You have to be fearful of powerful, strong women. And that's why they're created, because men are scared of those strong women in the story.
Relationships aren't easy, not for anyone.
Nick's great because she's so great for Joanna because Joanna has a real intensity. And Nick has tremendous intensity as an actress. So she uses that intensity for the character who really has too much intensity. She's really the glue that holds the whole movie together.
I wanted to have some fun. And I just had completed a film called Birth, which was a very heavy emotional film. And so I loved the idea of going and doing something that Scott Rudin told me, who's the producer, would be like summer camp.
And this must be Joanna.
I play Joanna, who is this high-powered, out-of-control career woman who runs this network, proceeds to have a breakdown, and her husband takes her off to the town of Stepford for her to recover, and that's how the movie begins.
Where do the women go? To the Simply Stepford Day Spa.
Very much told from Nicole's point of view is, okay, what happens to a very modern, very successful woman who suddenly finds herself becoming a Stepford wife?
You work out dressed like this? I think she walks into, you know, where everything's perfect and everybody's serene and nobody seems to have any stress and nobody rocks the boat.
It's not normal, Walter.
And that's what she finds kind of extraordinary. Because it's not like New York City. I liked being brunette. It's less showy, I suppose, and it's a color that, you know, I haven't been really, and my sister's brunette, and everyone kept telling me I look like my sister, which I like, because I think she's really, really cute. I've always wanted to look like her.
It's hard to do the Stepford wife the way it's supposed to be and still be ill up-tempo. Because right now...
What's the music?
Frank Oz, he brings a very strong vision. I mean, it is totally his vision. He knew what he wanted. He would say, just trust me, I know what I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing, and follow me.
It will be waltzy, kind of soft, background, super
Muzak-y?
Oh, it's
You know?
Muzak? It's not, what is it, Blue Daniel Waltz or something?
It's not going to be that. It just be aware of one thing, it'll be extraordinarily bland.
Extraordinarily bland.
He's very much a leader, you know, and it was his, he said, this is the movie I'm making and this is what I want to make. And he's very strong with comedy.
I'm going to attach a pine cone to my vibrator and have a really Merry Christmas.
Bette kind of knew in the beginning because we had lunch and I said to Bette that I needed some comedy there because really Nick's job and Matthew's job were really to be the glue, to be that marriage that was in trouble.
Are we ready?
Chris. And Bette said, so I'm the comedy relief. And I said, yeah. So she knew her gig was the comedy relief.
You look kind of like Betty Crocker.
I know.
Bobby is a writer and who thinks of herself as an intellectual and who leads a life of the mind. And she and her husband don't really get along very well, and they moved to Stepford hoping to get a new lease on life.
Am I the only one who finds all of this more than a little disturbing?
Bobby Markowitz is the absolute polar opposite of a Stepford wife. She's a woman who is a glorious and cantankerous mess.
She'll be won over eventually, but right now she's a little bit of a disruption because she's very unkempt, and in fact she needs a major makeover, and her attitude needs a little bit of adjustment. But she'll come around.
All the women around here are perfect sex kitten bimbos.
Finally, at the end, off camera without us seeing it, they probably kidnapped her, and they made her into an absolutely perfect Stepford wife. It's a shock when you see.
Good morning, Joanna.
That was the first scene we shot. That was the very first scene, and it was a pretty hard scene for me.
I mean, I would think I would have a little expression, but nothing, just still pleasant.
I hadn't established the character before we did the transformation. I had to decide what to do for the transformation, and so it was a little bit of trouble, but it was a lot of fun. It was very challenging.
Stop it. That is not cobbler.
Roger, could we reel it in like a couple of 100 yards? How do you
Paul wrote in this movie two homosexuals, which is part of Paul's genius. It's part of the comedy. They are kind of an experiment for Stepford. This is the first gay couple that Stepford has allowed.
We welcome you and your partner just like any other couple.
First, it was told to me, he said, they want you for a part in the Stepford Wives. And I thought, well, what part? I assumed, was it one of the husbands? Or I said, no, I as a Stepford wife, but a gay Stepford. I'm probably making history. I think I'm the sort of the first fella to be turned into a Stepford wife.
Roger Barter's brought hilarity and such invention to the character. You could just see him enjoying every moment, and it's a really fun portrayal of a guy who's both innocent, but at the same time just wildly enjoys life, which is just the kind of thing you want to quash, you know, if you're a bad guy like me.
You can see my hair right now, which is not a personal choice, but it is the way Roger Bannister wears his hair, and it's probably one of the first things that Jerry, my partner, decides should go. At one point, they had one scene where I was sort of showing off to Jerry after I got turned into a robot my 4-foot penis. Of course, that was cut, unfortunately, because I think it was too expensive. No, that's not true. I'm not sure exactly why it was cut.
Today you are in for a special treat because we are working on a series of exercises which I've personally invented.
Well, Claire is kind of the ringleader along with Chris Walken, who she's married to, who plays Mike. And they basically are like the king and queen of Stepford.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mrs. Wellington. Welcome to Stepford.
I organize all the events and kind of lead the women, and married to a man who I absolutely worship, played by Christopher Walken. In the scenes where I'm actually standing next to my husband and looking at him as he's speaking, I keep thinking of Nancy Reagan, because she had it down. She really did. I mean, she looked at him with total adoration.
Visita mi canal.
Mike! And it was that kind of complete worship of the man that I have chosen to be with that goes through my mind.
She just nailed that part. What she brought to Claire is a sense of a strong woman who is intensely desirous of being an old-fashioned woman, which Glenn is not, but that's her character, is to be an old-fashioned woman.
It's like focusing a fierce laser beam on homemaking. I'm intimidated by it. Me, Glenn Close, when I think of having a few friends over for dinner, I think, oh my God, how do I fold the napkins? Not really, but because I'm not a huge entertainer, but you kind of think there are a lot of women that are into that, and great. But I personally find it very intimidating.
I love the idea of creating a life-size Santa Claus all out of pine cones.
Faith really wanted this role a lot, and we talked about it, and I auditioned her first, and she just fit perfectly.
I think she's an observer. I think she's really watching. And she's come up to me a couple of times after certain scenes and commented, but I think that's how I learned. I learned by, first of all, being lucky enough to be in companies of really good actors, and then watching them, just watching how people work. And I see Faith. I think she's just taking it all in. She's a very, very smart lady.
Cut, Frank, brilliant. That was great.
One moment that I'll never forget for the rest of my life is we had a read-through of the script. And I didn't even know what that was. I was asking around, what do you do? What are we going to do? Are we going to have to get up? Are we going to have to, what do I do? And we were all around the table, and all the actors were there, and we read the entire script from top to bottom, and that was definitely just kind of jump into the whole situation as if I was naked, because here it was around this table with all of these amazing, talented people, and it's like, well, this is it. I'm either got to do it or I've got to, bail somehow. So I did it. I survived the read-through. So after that, everything's been smooth sailing.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice, Rob, if we did if it didn't hang on there, but did the fade up kind of here so she comes in the frame.
I felt protected being at my first film. I just felt that he, was very sensitive to that. Am I in here now? But yet, he didn't handle me with kid gloves. I was there just like everybody else. But he was very careful to explain what he wanted.
It's like a dream. It's like the way life was meant to be.
All the women around here are perfect sex kitten bimbos. All the men are drooling nerds. The men of Stepford are kind of dweeby. They were sort of .com nerdy types and made tremendous amounts of money, and then they decided to cash in their chips and fix their wives to their own satisfaction.
It's very ironic for us because as wonderful as they are, you can't say that the Stepford husbands have been cast for their beauty. So one of the girls came up to me in one of the first scenes and said, well, I know that we're eye candy, but where's our eye candy?
You've had a complete nervous collapse.
Walter works under Joanna. She's the most successful woman in television. Her husband works under her in the marketing department.
I got to work for you.
With me.
Under you.
I play Walter. I play Nicole Kidman's husband. I almost said wife, but that because that's how he feels a little bit. I've been kind of not feeling like a man for a while, I guess. Hopefully the story is finally a romance, our story. It's a marriage that's lost its footing, and through the man attempting to murder the wife and turn her into a robot, they realize that really they haven't been going in the right direction, and they turn things around.
I was just so lucky to work with Matthew Broderick, who I think people didn't expect us to be a couple, but then, we got along so well, and it was very, very easy working with him. I have so much respect for him. I'd seen him in a number of things, and I was very excited when he said that he would do it.
I was particularly happy when Matthew Broderick joined our cast because I had done the producers with him for so long. I felt like I'd already been to, in the trenches with him for so long. So that was really comforting.
And Dave and I also going to do a two-shot again from a different angle of Joanna and her husband, Billy Bob.
Well, Frank Oz is very impressive. He's tireless.
That's not his name. That's not your name.
All right, let's do Roger and Jerry first.
If something doesn't work, he's perfectly happy to change everything, to stop, to reorganize. There's no feeling of, well, I don't have time to deal with the scene. Maybe it'll work when we cut it together. Everybody has to feel that it's worked out.
What are you? Because I have a penis, we should get moving.
He's right, and it's less filling.
Up to there was very good, wasn't it?
Dave Markowitz is my husband, who is pretty much a fool. And he's played by John Lovitz, who I've worked with before. He's a terrific actor. He's hilariously funny. He plays, these kind of pompous windbags better than anybody.
John, Sir John Lovitz, please get out of my eye line.
I kind of knew everybody. I knew Christopher Walken and Glenn Close from Saturday Night Live when they hosted. And I'd worked with Bette Midler on her TV show. I'd met Nicole once before, so I kind of knew everybody. And they're all so talented. It's just fun, watching them work. When we do. You can cut that part.
Rehearsing?
I will say that working with John Lovitz is particularly funny because we get to watch his different strategies as he tries to kind of get more lines in the movie. That's always very fun.
Exactly.
Wait. They're a couple?
Wait. John, you blew the ending. You got to give me, John, what's happening at the ending is, I'm trying to get a little sense of foreboding, a little
I'm trying to get a line.
Okay.
And also, I have to share a car with him every day, which usually ends with him telling a very long story and me sort of shoving him out of the car and saying, "Get out. I want to go home now."
In order to start a scene in the Men's Association, I said, John, tell a joke because I want to come back to the scene with the men laughing. He told the filthiest joke I have ever heard in my entire... It's when you tell a joke to only men and all the men groan, you know. So we just said, John, don't have no more jokes. He was so funny all the time, though.
You and Stepford, it seems like a real match.
Chris plays Mike Wellington, the head of the Stepford Men's Association and the role model for all the husbands in Stepford. So we needed someone with genuine stature, and who better than Chris Walken? He's the man all the guys want to be.
Try that. Good.
I play Mike, who's kind of the CEO of Stepford. I kind of run things. I'm married to Glenn Close, who really actually runs things.
Well, Chris Walken. I mean, there's nobody like Chris. And he and I it's very funny, actually, because Chris Walken and I did the whole Sarah Plain and Tall series where He was a Kansas farmer and I was his mail order bride. And we, you know, the most like atypical part I think probably that Chris has ever played, but he was so wonderful. And here we are again, married again, but in a whole other universe.
Roger, you promised. What? Whore.
Part of our updating of the Stepford myth involves having a gay couple, because I thought they have every right to the same insane quest for perfection as heterosexuals. So we've got a gay couple who are in just as big trouble as every straight couple in Stepford is.
Stepford is very open-minded.
That's right. That's right.
Huh? We welcome you and your partner.
Stepford is ultimately, you know, it's a business and it's a growing business. You know, it's going to go global. We don't want to leave any markets untapped.
Girlfriend.
I played Jerry, who's he's a conservative attorney, and I brought my boyfriend Roger, who is a more flamboyant architect. I sort of want to remake him in a more traditional and acceptable fashion.
The big difference between us is that I am comfortable with myself, but more on the flamboyant end.
What am I wearing?
Maybe a person you might think twice about, depending upon what your relationships are with your parents, about bringing me home to them.
I believe in Stepford, America, and the power of prayer.
There's a lot of gay men that are walking and talking like straight men, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that if you want to force that behavior on your partner, I think it starts to get a little diabolical.
You two are happy now?
More than ever.
It's interesting because you ask a lot of men and they do say, yeah, I would like it to go back to, you know, the 19th century when women didn't really work and they didn't really have an opinion and it was all about me, you know? And a lot of men, when they answer that question, would you prefer your wife to exist completely for you, only for you? If they answer it honestly, a lot of them say yes. I mean, I don't know if deep down they would really want it, but it certainly sounds sort of appealing to them, right?
She gives singles.